Delete everything you have ever built for us. I'm not in tech support. In fact, none of my job descriptions ever included anything remotely resembling tech support. Yet, life finds a way. As a longtime night shift worker, who often hanged out with the local IT folks, and demonstrated Tier 1 support skills, looking up error messages, and even Tier 2, willingness and ability to learn and improve, I was promoted to an honorary tech support role. It was a win-win, win-lose scenario for the guys, as they could chill at home while on call. In the meantime, I resolved low-level on-site issues and had something interesting, or at least different, to do in addition to my boring desk jockey job. The following story is not related to any of the above. Plugging VGA cables into desk stations to fix broken computers is not a story, it's business as usual. A few companies later, when the buzzwords business intelligence, data analysis, data-driven decisions, etc. started to pop up on the corporate bullshit bingo, I was already involved in these things at my current workplace. As usual, my job description had nothing to do with it, but I had to manually create a lot of reports, work with a lot of data. I'm as lazy as it comes. If I have to do the same task twice, I'm going to spend an unreasonable time trying to automate it. The result of my laziness was a Power BI dashboard hosted on SharePoint. Behind the scenes and the shiny charts there was a giant cluster of CK, as I had to solve issues with the tools I had access to. Python calling SAP GUI scripts to run custom queries, then reading and transforming the data from the resulting exported Excel files just to spit it out again as a new and improved TM spreadsheet, PowerShell to manage SharePoint, then some auto hotkey and Power Automate to maximize the chaos. It had a lot of moving parts, tried to do way too much, but had classes. It was also a horrible mess, but I tried to keep it as organized as possible. Code on GitHub in a private repo, regular and conventional commits, issue tracking, written documentation for everything, all the other best practices. My team's standard reporting tasks, which were taking usually an entire week at the end of each month, condensed down to a few hours, which in theory could have been less if I had trusted myself, but I always QA'd the final result before releasing it for use. So, in addition to my standard role, which I performed above expectations according to my annual reviews, I was the local BI developer / data analyst / ad hoc tech support. At every salary increase cycle I always had to ask for a salary at the top of the range of the role which I had on paper, citing the above reasons. The company always fought tooth and nail, and it was always a painful and a bit humiliating experience. Unfortunately, after a few years they've decided that now that you've built these solutions, we don't need you anymore, we only need to hire someone to maintain it. You are fired. According to my contract, this would mean I'm still employed for another 60 days. I made sure to double-check everything, rewrite some of the documentation to be more clear, refactor the code, especially my early kludgy solutions, made backups on my team's OneDrive, fixed as many issues I could, etc. In short, I tried to make sure that everything goes smoothly when my replacement takes over. By the time my notice period was up, they still couldn't find anyone, as they've been advertising a wonderful 3-in-1 package. Yep, my successor was supposed to do everything I was doing. My last day was at the end of the month, and I pushed out one more update under the watchful eye of my supervisor. As soon as they saw that everything has updated, security came in and my boss said to delete everything from GitHub as it's an external site and a security risk. I tried to explain that it's tied to my corporate email and it would be best to keep it alive and transfer ownership to my successor. They wouldn't budge and told me to delete it. Okay then, let's nuke it from orbit. Told them that there's a local copy, on my work laptop and also on OneDrive, not in my private folder. They said IT will take care of it. Apparently that meant a deep cleanse of my laptop without retaining any of the data, while the she's on maternity leave woman's laptop was still in locker after 4 years, so the only remaining copy was in my former team's shared OneDrive folder. A month passed and my former boss called me asking for help. They still haven't found a replacement, unsurprisingly. Not wanting to burn any bridges and because I'm an exploitable idiot, I told them sure, I'll help, toss in a steak dinner voucher for 2 at a local mid-range restaurant and I'll help. They were dragging their feet, despite the fact that my ask was significantly lower in value than what the contractor rate would have been, and I knew they could expense it anyway. After a day or two they gave in. I hopped on my bike, signed an NDA, got a laptop and asked a team member to add me to the team's channel so I can start working. Long live Python mpip installer requirements. Text, or so I've thought. As I started to poke around on OneDrive I couldn't find my backup folder. After a while went to ask my former boss where did they move it, as I can't find it anywhere. Oh, we deleted them, didn't seem important. We're only a couple of files though, I'm sure you can easily do it again. Those few files were the result of hundreds of hours of experimentation, trying to figure out how the various systems work together. Just the pandas part was a couple hundred lines of unfucking data, and without documentation there was literally zero chance of recreating it in a short amount of time. Can't you just restore from that online hub thing? Not really, as you specifically asked me to delete it despite my protests. I left without getting my steak dinner. A few days later they've called me again asking me how much would it cost to make a brand new dashboard. Apparently some corporate bigwigs overseas were using it for their C-level bullshit PowerPoint meetings. Remember, it included global data, and we're pretty pissed that the fancy charts are gone. I may or may not have found a relatively recent local version of the Git repo on my Raspberry, which I may or may not have used to do some of the number crunching as my old SHT corporate laptop could barely handle anything. Yep, or Pi 4 8GB outperformed it. May or may not have forgotten to mention this obvious security breach and build out my hours as I've been creating everything from scratch. Story 2. Do not enable BitLocker by yourself. Hello TFTS, we just got back a broken computer from a customer few days ago, out of warranty. I've seen him holding his $2K laptop by the screen like a kid with a toy, but that's none of my business. Truth it, the screen seemed broken, and I think he used it as an hammer. I can't get other explanation on the physical damage on the computer. Whatever, the PC doesn't work anymore, since last week, can't get any power, even when plugged in. Motherboard was probably tired of this %, and committed suicide. The laptop itself is 5 yo, while being still good, it's too damaged to be worth spending money on changing hardware. So we will sell a new one. Now the story, the user have a company cloud, is using Azure AD and everything. He should have no important files on there, right? Well, it appears that he keep a lot of his files locally, for whatever reason. So we have to get the data back, right? No problem, I plug out the drive, get an external NVMe to USB adapter, and get the drive on my computer. Problem, Windows tell me that BitLocker was enabled and that I need the BitLocker key. I tell them that I need the key in order to recover the data. A key? What key? Bad news, we don't enable BitLocker except if the customer asks for encryption. I look for old tickets, and nothing about disk encryption from this customer. He enabled it. I call the customer, and explain him that we don't enable it by default, and didn't have any ticket asking for us to enable it, so he made it by himself. Then I proceed to tell him a story, about a customer that had the same issue, enabling the BitLocker and got an hardware problem, and we couldn't get the data back, but was lucky enough to have the PC hardware changed under warranty and got his data back after few weeks. He understood, no problem, he's aware that he is faulty, trust me on this one, I know you can't believe this but yeah, he will take the new computer and so on. And the evening, I remember the guy from few years ago. It was him. The same guys. 3 years ago, same problem. I was new on this company so I didn't know all the customer pretty well but I was pretty sure that was the same guy, and don't understand why he don't remember it, or maybe he remember it but was ashamed, and that's why he understood so quickly the problem? I logged into the Azure AD with an admin account, go to the users, list the computer, and click on it. What I see? A BitLocker key. I saved this key on his Azure account 3 years ago, probably without telling him. Thanks old me. Never ever enable BitLocker without saving the key, and if you're an end user, without warning your IT service. AD, Azure and local, are your best friend in keeping the keys safe, you should save them there.